I'm Trey Warmid, pharmacist and host of this podcast. I'm pleased to welcome you again to our Seacroft Primary Care Network podcast. It's a chance for you to meet the people involved in your care and to have an insight into how practices work together to create the network. Today we're meeting Cath Wohlers. She's the liaison manager from the England Illegal Money Lending team. Welcome to the podcast, Cath.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks. So we've got a few questions to ask about illegal money lenders. I think it'll be an interesting topic to discuss with you. So our first question is, what are some signs that someone might be dealing with an illegal money lender, and why are they dangerous for people who need money?
So the way to tell if you're dealing with a loan shark or an illegal money lender would be a loan without paperwork. That would be my biggest red flag. So if you borrow money from a legitimate company, they will give you sometimes quite lengthy paperwork describing exactly how much you've got to pay back, what interest rate you're paying, and things like what happens if you don't pay, what's the repayment plan then, and so on. Loan sharks don't bother with that. They will not give you paperwork in 95% of cases. Another one might be someone who you think is a friend and you think you're borrowing money from a friend, but actually once you've borrowed the money, they turn nasty and demand extortionate interest rates and may even threaten you about the repayments. And we see that quite a lot as well. And that brings us on to why they're dangerous. I think there's two big issues with borrowing from a loan shark. The first is financial. So we've worked with people who've borrowed small amounts of money and paid back literally hundreds of thousands of pounds, certainly tens of thousands of pounds on a regular basis. And because loan sharks don't care. They don't care what they're doing. They don't care if they're being fair. They will, give you loans and then you have to repay them so quickly, you have to borrow again. So one lady, for example, she borrowed £600 in the middle of the month. She has to pay back £1,000 at the end of the month. And because she's doing that, she then has to borrow £600 next month because she hasn't got the money to pay it back. And I think that's really problematic. And we see it all over the country because it just leaves people so short of money and with no other options for credit. But perhaps the bigger issue is what it does to people's mental health. So loan sharks will isolate you. They'll make you feel like it's your fault. They'll think, well, you took out the loan in the first place. It's on you. They'll make you feel like you can't tell anyone, your mum, your best friend, your partner about the loan. And that's really hard. It takes people on average 3 years to report a loan shark. And quite often that's 3 years of absolute misery.
Well, that's a long time.
It is a very long time. I think because people think they're a friend to start with, so you've got to go through a process of realizing this is not your mate, and then actually work out that what they're doing is wrong, and then that we exist and that we're here to help.
So that sounds like they kind of get them stuck in a loop of sorts.
Absolutely, quite often, when we sit down with people and actually work out how much they've repaid, they're astonished. There's a lady I'm working with at the moment, and she's borrowed lots and lots and lots of small amounts of money, £50, £100. And we worked out she's borrowed about £2,500 in total. She paid back £26,000.
Wow.
2,500. And the loan shark's saying she still owes £16,000. That'd be 42 on £2,500.
Yeah.
But because it's lots of small loans, they all kind of blur into one, and she just thinks about how much it is she's handing over this week. So she was absolutely astonished that she'd paid back that much when we worked it all out with her.
Yeah. Like when she's in the storm, they don't realise the enormous size of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's scary stuff. So how did your organisation help people who are being targeted by loan sharks?
So two main ways. We've got the power to prosecute the loan sharks, so we can take them to court and bring them to justice. That's the biggie. But alongside that, we're about the people. We're about the communities and the people who've borrowed who are affected by this crime. And that can look in a whole host of different ways. So you can talk to us anonymously. You don't have to give us your name. You can talk to us in confidence and we will still help you. You can tell us the loan shark's name. You can not tell us the loan shark's name. We will still help you. And it's about looking at what the effect has been on this person. Are they're paying rent? Are they making their mortgage payments? Is there a threat of homelessness, eviction, repossession? Is there a risk to their mental health because of the isolation and their self-esteem being undermined? What's their family situation look like? How is their finances elsewhere? Have they got enough food on the table? Things like that. And we'll look to try and help in whatever way we can with that individual. And that's regardless of whether or not they actually kind of formally report the loan shark. So there's very much the two sides, the enforcement side of taking action, but also the support side. And the two aren't necessarily interdependent. We can do one without the other.
Okay. Sounds like it can help quite a bit with people who are kind of stuck in that loop. It sounds like it's quite a holistic kind of review that you guys do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some people don't need it. Some people report the loan shark and they're like, just send me a text message to update me, and that's absolutely fine too. But
Mm,
some people, are at the end of their tether, and it's a 2-hour phone call every day just to keep them calm and tell
yeah.
them they've done the right thing. Because people think that they're going to report a loan shark and we'll go through the door the next day and say, Cath Wohlers says you're a loan shark. What have you got to say about that? And in reality, it takes months for us to build a case, and we
Yeah.
don't reveal our original source, So there's all sorts of things we can do to help protect people if they just have that conversation with us.
Okay. So it's kind of just helping people feel comfortable enough to have that conversation in the first place.
Absolutely, debunking some of the myths that fly about sometimes.
So why do people sometimes turn to illegal money lenders in the first place, even though it's risky?
I think sometimes people go to loan sharks out of desperation. They may think this is their only option. They're desperate. The car's broken down and needs repairing. The washing machine's blown up in the kitchen. It's September and school uniform is needed for the school because kids grow so much over the flipping summer. And I think that's a big reason that we see people going to loan sharks. It's they don't think, or there isn't alternatives for them. They're in debt. Maybe they've been a bit panicky and they've not really opened some letters that have come through the post. And then all of a sudden there's bailiffs at the door, or a housing officer knocking on saying, you're up for eviction now because you've not responded. And people panic, quite understandably. But the other reason as well is that people don't realise it's a loan shark. They don't walk around with placards on, unfortunately, saying, I'm a loan shark. So sometimes people genuinely do think they're borrowing from a mate, from someone at work, someone at the school gates, someone in the pub who's helping them out.
Yeah.
And actually, it's only a lot further down the line they realise it's a loan shark. So I think there's those sort of two sides to it. Again, the kind of desperation factor and lack of alternatives, but also then the fact that the loan shark is charismatic and nice as pie when they're giving the loan, and people can get taken in very easily.
So do you feel like there's an aspect of lack of information as well, where people are not sure what options they have in case they need money?
Absolutely. And I think that, you can see the appeal, can't you? You've got, a company that you've got to apply for. They're going to do credit checks. You think you might be about borderline on your credit history. They're going to ask you to fill in a form, loads of information, and they'll come back to you in a day with an answer, which may be yes or no. Or there's this guy sat on the table next to you at work who says, do you know what? I remember having kids. I remember how expensive uniform is. I'll lend you £200. Pay me back when you can. And you can see how easy it is just to say, are you sure, mate? That's brilliant. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
No mention of interest, no mention of what's going to happen if you don't pay.
Yeah.
And you take that £200 in good faith, pay them back, and then they keep coming back for more and more and more.
Yeah. I think it's just that aspect of it. Because the easiest path, they think, it'll be an easy fix, but they don't realise the long-term implication of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I've worked with people who borrowed very small amounts of money and still been paying it back years later. They've borrowed for Christmas and 3 Christmases later, they're still paying that debt off. So it's so easy to say, but, it may seem like an easy thing at the time, but, you could be dreading this and regretting this for years.
Yeah, it sounds like fighting stuff. If somebody doesn't have the right information.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone who is thinking about borrowing money from a loan shark?
I think if you're thinking about borrowing money from anyone, really, the first thing is if you're in debt, don't borrow more money to get out of debt. We talk to debt advisors, and it's the worst thing you could do. The best thing you can do is to talk to the people that you owe money to. And you can either do that yourself, or you can look to set up a debt management plan or get advice from a free debt advice provider. These are registered companies, and you shouldn't be paying for it. So things like Citizens Advice or Step Change or Pay Plan nationally, they're all really good companies who are there to help you and who will give you advice. So that's the first thing. Don't borrow more money to get out of debt. If that's not what it is, if it's the car has broken down, the washing machine has blown up, and you need that bit of money, just think about it. Have you got a family member who could lend it to you rather than a friend? Is there something else that you could do? Could you buy secondhand? Is there a repayment option at the garage? What else could you do around that money? But we also recommend credit unions if you do need to borrow. So credit unions are great places because they will treat you like an individual. It's not kind of computer says no. And they'll work with people to try and help them any which way they can.
Yeah.
So fabulous credit union in Leeds called Leeds Credit Union, which is even easier. And I think, that's a really good place to go for help and support as well.
Would you be able to just send me those afterwards? I can put them in the description so people who want to look into more information can look at the description.
Yeah, will do.
Thanks. So what should someone do if they or someone they know is being threatened by loan sharks?
I think the first thing is if you're in immediate danger, call the police. If you've got someone putting things through your windows or hammering on your door, then, we are not an emergency service. We've only got 60 staff covering the whole country. So if you're in immediate danger, call the police. If that's not the case and you want to have a conversation with us, I'd just say get in touch. We are pretty much unshockable after all the years we've been doing this job. We're not going to judge people. And like I said, we'll talk to you anonymously. So you can ring up and say, I'm not telling you a name. You can call me Dave. And we'll call you Dave for the duration of the call. And if after that you choose to hang up and walk away, that's entirely your decision.
Yep.
You know, we're not going to judge you for that. We're also not going to put any pressure on you at all. But I think one of the worst things people can do is sort of sit in that fear and sit in that isolation that the loan sharks put them in, because that gives the loan shark the power. And, you know, I've been working here 16 years and I've never come across anybody who said, I wish I hadn't spoke to you people.
Yeah.
I've come across loads of people who've said, I wish I spoke to your team earlier.
Yeah.
You know, and it's so easy to say, and we get how difficult it is to do, but just have that conversation, have it anonymously if that makes you feel better. And we can start building a relationship so that you get to the point where you can trust us enough to maybe tell us what's going on in your life. And again, if you don't and you walk away, that's fine too. So I think it's about getting in touch. You can do that in a number of ways. So we've got a hotline, which is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that's 0300 555 2222. And that's answered by one of the team. We don't use kind of call centres or anything else. It's answered by one of us. We've also got a website, which is stoploansharks.co.uk. And that has live chat available Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Because we get that some people would rather type than talk. I'm a bit like that sometimes. It's a bit easier. So it feels a bit less personal if you're typing rather than talking. So that's fine too. If that's what you'd rather do, there's no problem with that. It comes through with a unique number. So we don't know who you are. We just know that you're in England, or that's as far as it goes. People can sort of rest assured in the confidentiality.
Okay, that sounds good. I think that might the kind of anonymous nature of it and not being able to trace it back to probably makes people a bit more open to share it. Yeah, that sounds great. Which is a good way for them to kind of feel more comfortable with looking for help. Does your organisation work with the police and other groups to stop loan sharks?
So sometimes people think we are the police, but we're actually not the police. We're a trading standards team. So we're hosted by Birmingham City Council, but we work all over the country. Always confuses people because we've got Birmingham email addresses and then strange accents that they don't expect to come from someone who lives in Birmingham. We work with the police, though, because obviously sometimes loan sharks are involved in other criminality. They might be involved in drugs or other offences. And quite often the people we're looking at, they're looking at as well. We have 2 police officers who work for us because that gives us power of arrest, and it means we can search the computers for information and things like that. But we are actually trading standards. With other organisations, we'll work with anyone really. So we do lots of training for organisations such as debt advice, credit unions, NHS, third sector organisations, charities, whoever really has contact with people. And it's kind of looking at how a victim would present to that organisation and what help and support they can offer and how they can kind of signpost them effectively across to us. So we will literally work with anyone. We've done stuff in the past trying to raise awareness of loan sharks, where we've had our big shark suit mascot on football pitches and things like that. We've done drama projects in schools. We've done loads of different things, because one of the things I always say is loan sharks' power comes from people not talking about this. So if we can get people talking about this, even people who aren't involved in any way, shape or form, but we can remove that taboo, then to me, that's half the battle. Yeah. It's a great tactic, I think. I agree. It's just that kind of people not knowing or people not talking enough about it probably does hold people back from sharing. Like health, isn't it? We can see it. I'm sure you see it all the time in the health service. You know, the thing that people don't want to say, actually, this is going on with my body and it's a bit weird and I'm a bit worried, because they're worried about bad advice, or they're worried about what advice they're going to get and bad outcomes, but also they're kind of worried about being a bit embarrassed as well. But we know the power in talking. We know the power of being able to get it out. There's nothing worse than sitting there at 3 o'clock in the morning with worries going through your head, whether it's about health or money. So it is that thing, isn't it? We always say that to people. If you're worried and you think you might be in debt to a loan shark, talk to someone. Doesn't have to be us. Talk to somebody, your neighbour, your colleague, your mum, whoever. But have that initial conversation, because there's nothing worse than carrying big burdens by yourself. So how can people in the community help prevent loan sharks from targeting others? I think it's about not tolerating it. It's about saying that, as a community, we do not want these people amongst us. We don't want people who will charge 100% on a loan, who will charge 400% on a loan, who will trap people in this cycle of debt just for personal profit and greed. We don't want that, and it's not acceptable. And I think sometimes it's about a collective force standing up. Victims, sometimes borrowers, they'll believe they're the only person, and then we'll go and do a warrant at the loan shark's house, and we'll find their books or their mobile phones or their bank records, which say they've got 80, 90, 100 people borrowing from them. And if those people knew that, if they had the conversations amongst themselves, actually, I borrowed from him as well, and he's treated me badly too, And then maybe there is a collective power in reporting. But I think it's just about being aware, looking out for each other, and promoting the alternatives. Looking at debt advice and credit unions as a better way than illegal lenders.
Yeah, thanks. So how can people get in touch with your team? I know you mentioned it earlier, but just to kind of go through it.
Yeah, so the hotline I mentioned, 24 hours, 7 days a week, is 0300 555 2222. And that's free if you've got inclusive minutes on a mobile phone contract. The website is stoploansharks.co.uk, and that's where live chat is Monday to Friday, 9 to 5.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'll make sure to put the information with the debt advice management and credit unions and use your own confirmation to get in touch with your team in the description. But that was a really interesting chat. Thanks for coming, Cath.
No, thanks for having us.
No, cool. So if you enjoy this podcast and you feel like somebody would benefit from learning about this, make sure to share it, or just leave us a comment, let us know if there's anything else you'd like to know. But thanks a lot for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.